Okay, so we're going to talk now about having your decorative paper have the right amount for the front and the back cover. So the reason that we'll need to measure is right here. So you can see here on a finished book that when I look at the front cover, this is nice and even. So even if my book cloth underneath was a little crooked, the space between my spine and my decorative paper is even all the way down, and it's exactly the same on the front and the back of my book. So if I stand my book up, the decorative paper lines up front to back on both the top and the bottom, okay? In order to have this happen when we bind the book, we have to measure and make a little two guidelines for when we go to glue this decorative paper on, okay? And I will show you one with too much paper and one with just enough paper, so that depending on how much paper you have left, you can plan accordingly. So here I have a fresh sheet of paste paper that I'm going to use as a decorative cover, okay? This fresh sheet of paste paper, obviously, because it's a full 12 by 18 sheet of paper, I'm going to have plenty for my book. So what I'm going to do is, remember when we covered boards before, we need about 3/4 of an inch, which if you don't want to measure 3/4 of an inch is about as wide as your finger. And I need to make sure that I have that on the top and the bottom, okay? So I need that finger width on the top and the bottom of my paper, and then what I'm going to do is cut this section off. So if I have a whole sheet of decorative paper, this is how we would start that process for measuring. I'm going to just make sure that I have the whole bit. The next thing is, obviously I want some of this book cloth to show, so I have a lot of extra paper here in the middle that I'm not going to need. So the way we make this work so that we have a front and a back is, before I move this off, I'm going to take a ruler and I'm just going to line this up so that I have my finger width on the top and the bottom. I'm lining this up so that I have a nice straight line at the bottom with a ruler. Just going to slide this out of the way, and I'm going to use a pencil, and I'm going to put one single line across the bottom. Now I know that if I glue my cover so that it lines up with this line, I have enough to fold on the top too. Alright, so that's step one after I've identified my piece of paste paper that I'm going to use, or marble paper. Step two is I'm going to take this now and I'm going to fold it in half. So I'm going to fold this piece in half so that I have two pieces of paper instead of one. So I can fold and I can cut on the line, or I can fold and I can tear my paper down. And now I have two pieces of decorative paper, one for the front and one for the back, for my book cover. Okay? So that's how you would do this if you have a really large sheet of paste paper to work with, a fresh one that you've made. Let's say that I'm using a scrap. So I have this small piece that I want to use, and it's going to be enough because I know that I really only need like 8 or 9 inches. So I have 9.5 inches of this piece of paste paper. Partially the process is going to be the same. I need enough. You can see that the paste paper is smaller than my book on both sides, but I need a finger's width on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to slide my book so that I have that finger's width on the bottom. I'm now going to do the same thing on the top. I'm going to cut this extra off because it's wider the other way. Now I'm going to flip it over so that I'm not looking at the decorative side anymore. I'm on the back. And just like before, lining it up top and bottom. Oh, I just dumped my glue over. Line my ruler up here. Slide my book out of the way. Alright, so that gives me my baseline for gluing. And now what I'm going to do is the exact same thing. I'm going to fold this in half. I need two pieces, one for the front, one for the back. And as long as they're exactly the same size and shape, what I'm about to show you will give you those nice even front and back cover spacings like on the example book. So my next step now is I have to think about how much of this cover fabric, how much of this fabric I want to see on the front of my cover. Obviously, I have to cover it all. I can't leave a gap. So I can cover it super, super close, or I can cover a little bit more. So sometimes I find that easiest to do with just one of the pieces at a time. And that way, if my cloth is a little crooked too, I can adjust how much of it is showing. So I'm keeping that bottom line lined up. And I think this looks like about the right spacing. So if I have more on the front or the back, I would want to make sure that I make my measurement based on whichever one I have more of. And now what I'm going to do is measure this space right here. And I do need to do this with a ruler so that I can make the exact same measurement over on the other side, the other piece of paper. So let's see, it's not quite an inch, it is 1/8 of an inch short. So that means it's 7/8 of an inch. So right here at the top, I'm going to make a little mark at 7/8 of an inch. I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom, 7/8 of an inch, because that's how much extra I had. And now I'm going to draw lines to connect these two. All right? This here is where I'm going to glue my cover. This is the extra fold over on these two sides. I'm going to do the exact same thing now. 7/8 of an inch from this outer edge. So 7/8 of an inch. 7/8 of an inch. I'm going to draw my line. And now this is where I'm going to glue my cover. Right? And then because I measured on both of these sheets of paper, they will be exactly the same when I go to glue them on. Okay? Everybody got that? Do you want time to do this, or do you want me just to proceed to glue? Time, vote thumbs up. Proceed to glue, thumbs down. Okay, that's kind of what I thought. So I will give you 12 minutes.
Did you say you went to the restroom real quick?
Yeah.
Thank you. Just you?